Mployed is a sales recruitment firm that speaks with hundreds of sales professionals each and every month. We try and gather and share the best practices that we get from speaking with sales leaders and top performing sales reps. So if you're interested in becoming a better salesperson, then give us a follow and check us out at www.mployed.com. I recently had the pleasure to speak with Alastair Ejeson-Gould. For those of you who don't know him, Alastair is currently the head of EMEA at DBT Labs. And to summarize his career in 1.5 minutes, he began his sales journey 1.5 decades ago and has consistently overperformed since then. At SoftScan, he created 1,000 net new customers within 4 years, achieving an impressive 97% renewal rate. When SoftScan was acquired by Symantec, he was one of the only guys that kept their jobs, and he went on to deliver 180, 153, and 145% of quota during his 3 years after the acquisition. When he joined BMC, a company known for creating fantastic salespeople, he achieved 112% in his first year, becoming EMEA Rookie of the Year. The following year in FY14, he did 340%, scoring the largest contract size ever in the Nordics. In FY15, he did 120%, FY16, 115%, FY17, 130%, scoring the largest services deal ever. When he took on a regional director role at MongoDB, launching them in the Nordics, he delivered 371% over team target during his first year, and the following year he delivered 175% over team targets and grew the region to become one of the most successful regions in the world. And as successful as he is a salesman and sales leader, he is also a loving father and a husband that puts family first always. Alastair has been a friend of mine for the past half decade, and I've followed his journey in building one of the most successful regions in MongoDB. And he's now leading the go-to-market efforts at DBT Labs. Our walk and talk was initially not intended to be an episode, but after speaking with Alastair for 10 minutes, I just found his story too engaging not to share it with others. So I'd recommend that you listen in and pay attention to one of the best salespeople and sales leaders in the Nordics today about his journey into getting where he is at today and what makes a great salesperson. And hopefully it can make some of you out there become better salespeople yourselves. Enjoy. I guess we can rewind the tape a bit, and if you just want to kind of walk me through your experience going from this tiny little startup. What was it called?
SoftScan,
a Danish startup that was acquired by this huge cybersecurity company in Symantec, and what that meant for you after having really struggled and fought in getting into this sales job and becoming a top performer.
I think firstly it's fear, right? Because you're used to one way of doing things. You're used to a certain culture, you're used to a certain size of used to your manager, used to your colleagues, certain way of being and being accepted, and suddenly this new big yellow culture comes in. It's a big company that suddenly is completely different. Suddenly our sales manager comes in and starts offering us, he's got connections where he can sell us, shirts, because none of us are wearing shirts, we're all wearing t-shirts, right? And suddenly we're going to become corporate, and he's getting all these like young guys that spend their Friday afternoons opening the bar in Copenhagen at 12, and just having a few beers and getting on the phone and having a good time. Suddenly we're going to become corporate, and that's completely different. And some people shied away from that. Some people just weren't ready for that. They were just doing this as a sales job before they go to uni, or they didn't really know what they wanted to do. And you can see there are some amazing people that have come out of that time.
Yeah.
But I think that it was a choice at that time. What are you going to do? And as I said, we went from 150 sales reps at the time to about 6.
Well, so they fired essentially the entire.
Yeah, it was a consolidation, right?
Yeah.
And if you're going to acquire a company, you're going to do it for market share.
Yeah.
Maybe technology. And you'll take the best people that you can, and then you'll streamline as much as you can. And that's essentially what happened. They took the market share of the customers, and we migrated everyone. And then it was time for a new era. So what happened to me was, we were all based in Copenhagen, and there was one job, the Symantec enterprise role for cloud services, which is crazy to think that cloud services is a separate department, but that's what it was then. I was going to be the specialist within Symantec to sell cloud services.
Yeah.
I remember the Friday afternoon, and there were 5 people going for this job.
Yeah.
It was going to be based in Stockholm, and one after the other went into the interview, or to find out whether they got the job, and they came out and they were told that they don't have a job anymore. And I was last up.
Yeah.
So I was, in some ways, they're my friends. I'm hoping that they get the job. On the other hand, I've just had my first child, and I'm like, really hope I get to stay here, because I don't know what else I'm going to do. And obviously I got the job, and I moved up to Stockholm with, my 1-year-old and my wife, and we basically started to build the business within Symantec for cloud services.
Yeah.
And it was.
But I mean, up until this point, did you have any sales training, or did you just run on pure grit?
It was, I remember for the first, I studied business or economics, and so I literally didn't have any experience. The only experience I had was, from growing up, which is from my mum and dad just saying, just don't give up. If there's a 5-man basketball team, I was the 6th man. If there was an A and a B team, I was captain of the B team, in football. Like it's ingrained to not give up in my upbringing. And that was just the challenge that I saw I needed to overtake, which was, you've got to find a solution to this. And my solution, whether that's correct or not, was just to work hard, or work harder than anyone else.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have experience, then
that's all you can do.
You have no choice, right? It just comes down to how much do you want it. And I remember, sat there, Alan Barnstable from Bristol Waters. I remember him so well. It was my first big deal. And, you always remember these kind of pivotable, and I managed to get hold of him at 5 p.m. He was putting his coat on, and I rang him up and I said, we're using this current solution. What if I could offer you better and cheaper? And, would you be interested in this? And surprisingly enough, he said, actually, our renewal's up in 3 months. Let's go. And managed to close that. And that was the biggest deal, and, in the UK company's history at the time. And that was the start of the only reason I got that was because I stayed. Everyone else went home at 4:30, and I got hold of this guy at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And I started to see that pattern more and more and more. If you just make that extra call, at least at the beginning, right? I'm not saying you always have to work harder than everyone else throughout your career, but if you have a lack of experience, and you don't know what you're doing, then you have to make more calls than anyone else, because you're not going to be as good as everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. And the only way you learn, right, is through exposure to challenging situations. And that's something I try and tell my colleague as well, that, you can only grow by getting yourself out of the comfort zone and challenging yourselves in situations where most people don't venture. And that's what you did.
So then the next point was I'm at Symantec, I'm a young guy, and I'm looking around, and everyone's a lot older than me, and they're set in their ways, and I just decided there was something else. I understood that maybe I had some grit, and I had maybe a little bit of talent there somewhere, right? Yeah. I was able to maybe connect with people or understand, build champions. But I wanted to know the science, why makes someone really successful.
Yeah.
And that's why BMC then rang me around that same time.
Yes.
And I then understood that there's a whole science behind this.
Yeah.
Both my parents are mathematicians. I've been grown up with understanding that there's an equation to everything in life. It can't just be hard work.
Yeah.
And so that's what attracted me to BMC. It's actually to understand why, if I could do X, Y, Z, would I then get the outcome I'm looking for? It can't just be work hard.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where BMC came in, and that was a journey in itself, right?
So BMC is obviously known for being this huge school of sales for a lot of successful salespeople.
Yeah.
Can you kind of walk me through that journey at BMC and what you picked up?
The guy that I've taken over from is going to build up ServiceNow, which is our biggest competitor. I'm taking over from his job. Within the first 9 months, the 7 people I started with in Northern Europe, I was the only one left.
Wow.
So
was that because just the nature of the sales force, or the culture, or was it because they got laid off for not reaching targets?
Some people don't fit that culture.
Yeah.
They choose to leave. Some people are chosen to leave.
Yeah.
Some people just, just didn't work out for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
And I know, and a lot of them have had great success in other careers. So there's no right or wrong way here. It's just sometimes it doesn't fit. The shoe doesn't fit, right? And for me, maybe the shoe wasn't fitting either. I was 9 months in and I hadn't closed much, right? Closed very little. And I could sense there were questions of me. And I remember my manager sat me down and said, look, Ali, your quote is 2.4 million and you got 1.4 million left. What are you going to do? And I wanted to avoid the conversation because, I didn't want to think about the numbers. I was just like, it was making me feel bad. But actually, I'm really grateful for him because it forced me to face the facts, face the reality, put the mirror reality up in front of me. And he said, he wasn't trying to have a go at me. He just said, what are we going to do? What ideas do we have? And we basically came up with an idea of taking an existing 250k deal and growing it. Yeah. By using a champion that we have in there, finding a mutual win between us and the customer and the champion. And so the game rules were set. I basically was going to go in the next day to this customer. I won't name them, but went into this big bank. And I remember sat there just waiting for my moment. And I said, Ola, would it be okay if we had a chat outside? And stood him outside, was like, okay, this is my time. Would it be okay? Would you be open to? And then I gave him the value prop of what I thought we could do and why it would make sense for him.
Yeah.
But then that we need to do this in the next 3 weeks.
Yes.
And he looked at me and went, okay, I'm going to speak to my boss. Come back here in 24 hours. And it's interesting because this guy, this champion, was the same guy that wanted to kick me out my first week of being at BMC because the upgrade had gone really badly and he was really upset with our company.
Yeah.
But I think there'd been a progression of building that champion, I guess, or building that trust together. Anyway, so I come back the next 24 hours thinking, this is it. This is, and he says, yeah, spoke to the people in charge and we'll do it. And so from going from where I thought I was going to, lose my job. Yeah. I became Rookie of the Year that first year and, in PMC. And I was like, isn't that strange how these fine margins can really just completely change where you end up. Right? Yeah. So that was my first year at BMC.
So how did you know this guy was a champion and not a coach, as you say in medic sales?
Because I'd spent a lot of time with him.
Yeah.
And I understood where he ticked. I understood the names of his grandchildren. I understood his girlfriend. I understood he played golf 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
I also understood his background. So I had that personal connection. It was important for him to have a personal connection. And I understood that his boss used to report to him and he'd just taken a step back because he was the end of his career. But ultimately he had the power over his boss.
Oh, wow. So he was actually in the position that his boss was now sitting in.
Exactly. So he was the ultimate champion. Yeah. As long as he saw a benefit for him. He wasn't just you don't spend like $1.5 million just because you like someone. You do it because there's a business value. But you may be open to listening to that business value if you like someone.
Yeah. And that's such an important point, that kind of reputation within the organization and the credibility. Like if you have a person that you call a champion, but no one listens to, then that's not a champion.
No.
But this guy has obviously been the person with discretionary power over the budget.
So then the next year, right? Been Rookie of the Year. Everything's great.
Yeah.
My target was 2.5 million again. And I come to the summer. I've been working on this deal from literally the first week I started at BMC.
Yeah.
And we shake hands with a public sector company, trustworthy. I spent 2 days a week in that organization. And I lived in Lund. So it's 2 flights up, young family, but I thought it'd be worth it. And basically, we shook hands on a deal for $2 million that summer. And they were like, look, it takes a long time to get things through. Let's sign this after the summer. It's midsummer now. We'll come back in August and we'll basically finish it up. I was like, yeah. What are you thinking there, Christian?
Time kills all deals. That's what I'm thinking.
So I didn't know that at that time, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that time kills deals.
Yeah.
Because I was like 25 and time hadn't killed any of my deals.
Yeah.
And so there hadn't been enough time in my career for time to kill deals. And so what happened was they went to VMworld. VMworld found out about this and just gave the licenses away in a package deal. So CTO comes on and says, look, we really appreciate all your work, but ultimately we're a public sector company and we have to, if someone's going to give this away for us, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm sat there going, it's over now. I'm done. I'm going to fail. What am I going to do? And again, we come up with a plan. Again, my boss, same boss again, comes up with a plan. What we're going to do. And so we go back to the same bank. They are now going to an executive briefing center, and we concoct a plan that when we're over there, we ask them, look, in 6 months' time, end of our year, March, we'd like to do like an all-you-can-eat contract with you. Because we know you're insourcing a lot from one company to another, and we know you're going to make a lot of decisions. Could we, if we built a business case, would you be, and we did a lot of sales processes around this, would you be open to doing that?
Yeah.
And they said, yes, we would. And so that started off another 2 days a week. I'd moved up to Stockholm by this time, so it would be a 2 days a week in Copenhagen instead. But this time we had EB alignment. This time we had a plan, and I was conscious that we needed to build the business case. We needed to understand the metrics around the pain. We needed to understand the implication of those problems. And we had we basically ran about 5 or 6 sales processes, and then we same champion again.
Yeah.
Came back in, and then we're there end of March, week before the end of the year, and the EB brings me into the room with my VP of EMEA, not my direct manager, and I've got like a 40-degree fever. I'm in a mess, and I'm like, I've got to go down to this meeting. Yeah. So the champion's there, EB's got there. 2 contracts on the table from me, one for 1.5 million, which basically makes my number. The other one for a lot of money that makes me EMEA rep of the year, and 350%. And he says, right, Alastair, you spent a lot of time here. Now describe to me why this makes sense. And I try to pivot, and I give him reasons, and I try to get into a dialogue, and he's like, no, I'm not here for a discussion. I just want you to tell me. And so I squirm for an hour. I give him all the different reasons. I mean, I lived and breathed this. I knew everything. He's got all the information on decks and all this sort of stuff. But and then we leave the meeting. As we're leaving the meeting, he says, look, I'm not going to use it. Your champion's going to ring you in 20 minutes. I'm just going to have a chat with him, and we'll make a decision, and he'll let you know which way we go. So I'm going through Copenhagen airport security, and he rings me up and he goes, you've got the big deal.
So one question comes to mind here, because the EB, obviously, he already knew everything that you were telling him.
Of course.
The champion had already sold it to him.
Yeah.
He just wanted to, why do you think he asked you to explain it to him?
So initially I thought it was just a power trip.
Yeah.
I just thought he wanted to show, he wanted to show his boss. Actually, this guy needed to still get signed up. Okay, he's the EB. He has discretionary use of the funds, but he still needs to go and get sign off from the CFO on this.
Yeah.
He's still going to have to make sure that he's got justification as he signs this off. And I think he wanted to square off whether what the champion was saying or what we were saying was aligned.
Right.
And and also what's our commitment to this? If you sign this, what are you going to do over the next few years to make sure this is successful?
Yeah. And that's where
it was, right? They were going to get an ROI within 18 months.
Yeah.
And, it was a 5-year contract. So they were going to make a lot of benefits from doing this, from consolidating.
So was this kind of where your career really took off at BMC? Because you stayed there for a number of years.
I did, yeah. It's similar journeys with other customers. And I think that was, it's difficult to top that. There's not many people that end up that young being EMEA rep of the year.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that that comes with a lot of expectations. So life is not just about oh, you took off and then everything's great and you just went from strength to strength. It's not like that.
Yeah.
The next year you're struggling with pipeline generation again. You're starting at 0 a week later. It's not that simple. You have to get your mindset again, structured on how are you going to do this?
Yeah.
How are you going to build up your business again? And how are you going to go and find value for your customer that you've just sold to, or what's your plan? So I think it was, I think it was a constant struggle, to be honest. I made my number each year, but it was, I don't think it was a bed of roses all the time. What I told myself at the time was, you're going to lose your job in 6 months.
Yeah.
You've got to keep fighting. This fear of failure ultimately has driven me to succeed.
Yeah. And
now I have less of that fear of failure, but during that time, that was the driving factor behind, getting up in the morning, providing for the family, but also making sure you don't mess it up.
Why do you think that fear of failure was so strong?
I think it comes from your upbringing.
Yeah.
You know, like I was, definitely pushed very hard as a growing up to perform.
Yeah.
Academically or sports or whatever it may be. And so I think it just comes from your upbringing, which I'm super grateful for. Like, I'm not bitter about that. Without that, I don't think I'd be able to push through, certain times or find solutions, because failure wasn't an option. But now with my kids, I'm trying to get them to learn to fail.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a holistic way of doing things. And it takes less of a toll on your mental health to constantly be in fear of failing. But it's not as easy as said than done, right?
I was in the interview process at MongoDB with you, and that's why I think our relationship has kept going, because I admired your journey from MongoDB. But what happened when you launched MongoDB in the Nordics? And why did I pass up such an amazing opportunity?
You tell me. I mean, I think there's, as we talked about with BMC, right? There's sometimes things don't fit for either party.
Yeah.
And that was the choice you made at the time. It was intense at Mongo, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't for the faint-hearted, and that was the culture we were building. It was going to be very, very high paced, and it was going to be, you're going to be a building block within a company. I think what you ended up doing was going for a startup and maybe owning a little bit more yourself. And I have full respect for that. That's like absolutely fine. And I think that's why in any interview process, it's important to align both with the candidate and the hiring manager what the decision criteria is.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that determines whether this is a good fit or not.
For not having any team in the Nordics, MongoDB got off to a great start under your leadership. Can you tell me about that journey?
I mean, it was intense. The first sort of few months, we were borrowing reps from different regions. We then took one of my SCs and upgraded him to a sales rep. He then became rookie sales rep of the year, and then in top 3 worldwide the next year. So he had an amazing journey. But it wasn't easy, because I think the problem is there's a lot of companies out there that sell the dream. This is going to be amazing. But ultimately, you need to find people that are willing to take the risk.
Yeah.
And there's not that many people that are, everyone wants a sure bet. Not everyone goes into cryptocurrency because they're worried about it.
Yeah.
And so at the time, it was very difficult to sell the opportunity of Mongo, because people didn't know whether this was going to be a massive success or not. And the people that turned it down, I mean, a lot of them have come to me and said, well, I regret that. Or maybe I don't regret it, but I actually, based on talking to you, I bought a load of stocks. So thank you so much, because I made so much money on this.
Yeah.
And I've literally 5-6 people that have done that based on the conversations that we've had, and I'm happy for them. But yeah, it was not easy, right? I remember one time when I had 6 people lined up for interview with my lead, who's now the EMEA lead for Mongo.
Done, right?
Yeah, and there was like 6 people lined up that I thought were really good candidates. I remember at the end of the day, it was a no from every single one of them.
Wow.
From Don. I remember sat there going, this has taken me 2 months to build up this pipeline of people.
Yeah.
And it's hard enough selling these people. And now where do I go from here?
Yeah.
So I think that was the lowest point ever at Mongo, because it was like, how do I build this region up? Like, I'm struggling to sell it and I can't hire. Like, how am I going to scale this? And I've never hired before, so I have no track record of this, and time's running out. So again, fear of failure again, right?
Yeah.
But
so what did you learn from those kind of where you thought these are really good candidates? Qualification.
Yeah, like, it's okay selling a candidate, but you also got to qualify them.
Yeah.
And because qualification for yourself, but also for the candidate, because, it's really bad bringing someone in and they come as a shock. This is not what I thought we were going to be doing.
Yeah.
We have to do PG, or, we have to sell to these types of personas, or I have to learn this type of technology, or I've never done that before. Like, why didn't we have that conversation? So I think I was too busy selling the opportunity than actually qualifying. And Don was having to over pivot on the qualification. And that was the lesson I was taught then, right?
Yeah. That's a great lesson, because there are so many companies that, they oversell on the role you're going into, and then you're hit with a completely different reality. So that must have been valuable.
That's the cost of a bad hire.
Yeah.
is astronomical, right? Because you not only lose the productive capacity of that person. Say they come on, they're there for 3-6 months. Either they leave or you exit them. It takes you another 3 6 months to hire someone else, you've lost a year.
Yeah.
Straight away. Plus the cost of, getting someone out and all this kind of stuff. And plus the mental health of yourself and the person, right? It's just not a good, it's really important to pick the right person when you're, and I was told this, right? I was told this going to Mongo, but I didn't feel it until I'd experienced it.
But how big was the region when you left? Because you built it from a one-man show to essentially like 30 plus people or something.
Yeah, but there's about, I don't know the exact numbers now, but somewhere around that region, right?
Yeah.
It is now. And it's a success. It's not just me. Like, I can't take the credit for that. There's a lot of, experienced sales leaders and supporting functions that have made that success. It's like, I'm just a building block in that. But yeah, it was an amazing journey, and it will continue to grow. It's one of the best regions for Mongo right now. So I think, it is something that I'm proud of, but I think a lot of people involved in that can be proud of that.
So what was this role that you got after having claimed the successful RD role at MongoDB for a number of years? And then you went on to sort of a more strategic role?
So I essentially decided that I need to do something else.
Yeah.
Like the candle wasn't burning as much for me anymore. Like, I just needed I needed something else to keep myself going.
And were you upfront with, like, did you have
100%.
this conversation?
I had this conversation with people, and I was given a role which was in enablement, but it was almost like a business consultant. So it was like, okay, we've got a PG problem in Southern Europe, go and fix it.
Yeah.
We've got a problem in another region, and we've hired lots of new people and they don't know the tech. Go and fix that, basically. Or we need to build a new sales process. Can you be part of like rolling that out to 1,000 salespeople? So like, it gave me a completely different understanding and empathy for how other sales leaders are doing. And I felt like, because I'd been sales leader for 4+ years, I could actually help the sales reps, but I could help the leaders as well.
Yeah.
But I also learned a lot, because I got exposure outside the Nordics of what great people were doing, what not so great people were doing. And like, for me, it was a wonderful experience, 6-9 months. But then for me, it was the hunger started to come back.
Yeah.
It's like, I've been Lewis Hamilton for all my career, and now I'm the pit crew. And I wanted to get back in the saddle again and build something and really have a bigger impact.
Yeah.
You could argue an impact is big with enablement. Of course it is, right? But it's more difficult to see that impact.
You don't feel it in the same way.
You don't feel it. And so I missed that. And instead of me feeling forced to do it, I stepped into wanting to do it, which has meant now I wake up every morning actually choosing, like, I'm not a victim, right? I'm choosing to go to work because I want to do this. And that brings a completely different mindset to everything you do and the decisions you make.
This is a 2-part series with Alastair, and in the next episode you'll hear more about his journey so far at DBT Labs. We'll talk about qualification methodologies like MEDDIC and how to incorporate that into sales processes, what makes great salespeople, and what are the characteristics Alastair looks at when hiring. So give us a follow and stay tuned for the next episode.